This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This show for the week of April 15th, 2024. And it is allergy season. Phil immediately noticed that my allergies are kicking in. This is the first time it's hit consistently 70 to 80 degrees over here in Maryland. And all the trees are sprinkling their little green presents all over the place. And I might sound nasally, and that is why. Phil, are your allergies kicking in? Because you sound normal to me.
Yeah, like I kind of just have constant allergies all the time, so I just I don't get better or worse. But yeah, things are starting to bloom here too. So I know my wife gets the seasonal stuff when specifically we have forsythia. When that goes crazy, she gets nuts. So that's coming.
Good times, because it's, if it's hot now, because I was at my son's baseball practice this evening and I had to run around and help out with some of the drills, and I had jeans on from work and I was sweating my tail off. And if I'm sweating my tail off at like 7:30 at night in Maryland, those that are down in Florida must be really sweating off, because now the temperature's starting to swing up there. So stay cool, hydrate.
Yeah, I think there was some like post like 100 degree or real feel 100 degree is coming like this coming next week or something. Yeah, so stay hydrated.
Yeah, if you're going down, it is big time summertime temperatures down there. So prepare accordingly. Before we start, reminders of our social media accounts: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube channel, all at the DBC Pod, and of course our Discord server. We want to welcome some new YouTube followers or subscribers. Leia Ritland, Blue Dot Sessions. I like that name there. So thank you for hitting that button. And make sure you join the Discord server so you can join the conversation. The link for Discord is in the comments section, so we appreciate that. Okay, so we're just going to get right into it. We've got a good combination of like newsy things and like planning things. And I'm just going to warn all of our listeners out there. There's just going to be like every episode is going to be like, well, what rumors did you hear, until like D23 pops off, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of that type of stuff. So one thing that actually did happened in Europe, Phil. So why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so Disney shared a bunch of updates that are going to happen at Disneyland Paris. So for the regular park and for some of the hotels and stuff like that, they've been doing work on there. Obviously, been building out the new Frozen area and stuff like that. But now what they're calling, and I put it in quotes, a new creative vision for the second park there, which is currently called Walt Disney Studios Park. They're going to rename it Disney Adventure World, which it's not the most creative name ever, but I guess
you don't have to be creative about it. But like, I don't like the word world in there, but it's better than Disney Adventure Park, because that makes it small. But Disney, I like the word adventure in the name of it. I dig that. So that's pretty cool.
So they're talking about all the new different areas and how it's going to function and stuff like that. They said they're changing the story of the park, and it's going to be evolving from a how it's done soundstage to something that is celebrating theaters and adventures that come to life in immersive worlds. And when I saw this, it made me think of like the transition that is potentially happening at Disney Hollywood Studios down at Walt Disney World. So it kind of made me think, like, is what's going on in Paris a glimpse into the future of what we're going to see down in Florida? And, we're always saying, well, what's speculated? What else could be announced at D23? And could they announce that they're going to be changing the name of the Walt Disney Studio, or of Disney's Hollywood Studios, to something else?
So here's a couple things. So I immediately thought of this. I think everybody did, right? So I don't think they'll announce this at D23. This is if they're going to do it. I think that's probably the next D23 2 years from now, I would imagine, right? Because I think they've broken ground and Frozen over there in Paris. I think they started breaking ground like a year and a half ago on that project, right? So they're just announcing it now. So I think we would see if anything's coming to Hollywood Studios. Like, remember last week, we talked about a rumor how there's something a buzz back going on over there. There's a lot of different competing rumors, a lot of speculation. They know something is coming. They just don't. A lot of people are saying they don't know what. It's all in motion. That being said, I think they could put shovels in the ground, start doing that. You could start seeing physically them changing something, but we won't get the announcement of that name for maybe another 2 years. I think that's likely to happen. But like I'm excited because everybody's like that's what everybody's thinking, right? It's a park for immersive storytelling, and they're getting away from like the studio's idea.
Yeah. So at the front of the park, which it looks very much like what Disney's Hollywood Studios used to look like, that it was like a working studio with all the different kind of sound stages and stuff like that. And they're going to be changing the whole theme of that area to be that you're at the premiere at various famous theaters, and it's going to be called World Premiere Plaza. So taking all that into account and thinking about what's already happened at Hollywood Studios by adding, Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land and stuff like that, I sort of said, well, what could this look like? What could a similar change look like for Disney's Hollywood Studios, which my proposal, and it's not creative or new, it's been out there for a while, but just calling it Disney's Hollywood Adventure, and where you're immersing yourself in the world of Hollywood and the worlds that it has created.
See, I think they might put adventure in there because Disney loves calling all their parks similar names. But I'd be curious to see if the word Hollywood sticks. I think that might get people confused, like Hollywood Studios, Hollywood Adventure. I think it gets to the point of, why bother changing if it's still Hollywood Adventure versus Hollywood Studios?
Yeah, I guess my point was
similar.
Dropping the studios part. That's the part
sure.
that's changing. And that's what I was thinking more, rather than the studios that you find in Hollywood, it's the worlds that the people of Hollywood have created. So again, I would change the entrance. So Hollywood Boulevard becomes like the premiere land that is happening over in Paris. And you're like a celebrity walking the red carpet, and there's like, kind of Instagram photos all over the place, and kind of, lots of photo pass people. And like, obviously that ties into going to the Chinese theater and where Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, where you're seeing the premiere of the new cartoon and stuff like that. So I think that all sort of fits. Sunset Boulevard kind of stays the same, immersing you in the golden age of Hollywood. I figure they could keep Echo Lake similar, just change things up a little bit, but make it more concrete that you are in the scenes of like you're working in Hollywood and kind of seeing things, how that happens. Obviously you have Galaxy's Edge that puts you in the world of Star Wars. Toy Story Land puts you in the world of Toy Story. And then I figure there's 2 areas that could still evolve and kind of represent other themes or genres of types of properties that are made in Hollywood. So I was thinking the animation courtyard could put you into the world of animation and really kind of build up that, and maybe even have a restaurant like they have Animators Palettes on Disney Cruise Line, where you draw something and it comes to life, and there's different attractions based on various animated properties. And then the rock and roller coaster area expands a little bit more, and that becomes kind of the action adventure thrill area. Maybe even tying, I think you mentioned, Jason, at one point becoming like the spooky area or something like that. So somehow building out those 2 areas that definitely need more, and kind of capturing different concepts or different genres that are around there.
So I want to push back on 2 points, because I think Hollywood Boulevard becoming Premier Land, great idea. It's like the central hub of the whole park. I like Sunset Boulevard if we're going to do Golden Age of Hollywood, you might want maybe change that to something else that blends into whatever goes back in your action area.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the idea of Echo, like one area being like behind the scenes, but like right there, that's it, right? So that's cool. Obviously Star Wars and Toy Story Land. Here's my pushback though. Your 2 new areas, the animation courtyard, I think it in this action thrill area, whatever it might want to be called, Adventureland, whatever. I think Disney needs to go singular IP worlds, right? So this would be their quote unquote answer to Epic Universe. And we're going to talk about that in the next topic, right? But like Epic Universe is you have a central celestial park, whatever it's called. And then you've got all these portals to Monsters, Mario, How to Train Your Dragon, and Potter and everything else. But those are singular universes that you're being transported to.
Yeah.
In Hollywood Studios, if they're thinking long term and thinking this properly, you have a portal into Star Wars. You have a portal into Toy Story. You need portals into whatever it might be. And Animation Courtyard being, well, maybe this might have been a great idea before they put Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in there, because you would stick that in the back.
Yeah,
and that
that's
would
true.
be your tune area type of thing. I think they're forced to build into a singular universe. So that spooky area, well, all of our ideas before have been like, you've got this IP, this IP, this IP, but they're all spooky, and that's the tie-in. I think if Disney were smart, they would somehow blend that into one specific world or whatever it might be. So that would be my only pushback. But again, obviously you split those into two. That would be really awesome if they had like two lands back there.
Yeah,
sure.
I think if you had 2 new lands where, you know, updates to a couple rides and maybe add 2 or 3 new rides, and then you have this whole cohesive theme that's a little bit more apparent. Now I think you kind of have a complete park.
I mean, like if you took out the Lightning McQueen experience that they have back there and put in like Radiator Springs, like racers back there somehow, and then somehow convert Tower of Terror into like a Cars related ride, whatever that might be. And then the roller coaster, Rock and Roller Coaster, into a Cars related roller coaster, which could easily be done.
Yeah.
I think you have your Cars land there. And then whatever you put in the back of where Animation Courtyard is currently, to whatever that might be, that would be really cool. I think that's a direction. But I think we've all pontificated on this 1,000 times in the last couple of years with different things. But I'm really psyched to see if we get any announcements this year on how they're, I don't know, reimagining this park.
And one other thought I had, you know, because you're saying about D23 not getting announced now, I think it would be because the speculation obviously is we're going to get much more concrete announcements for, if not beforehand, for Animal Kingdom and Magic Kingdom. If those are kind of in progress and coming and we see the build, it would be interesting if they say, and here's some blue sky ideas.
I was just going to say that. Yes. Because you're saying like maybe they might announce it. It's like, no, because there have been rumors that they're going to keep doing blue sky stuff. Yeah. And I think this would be a perfect place to like, here's some concepts we have for Hollywood studios.
Yeah.
Because I think Disney would be smart if they have continuous announcements of projects that have been greenlit they're going to do, getting people stoked for the next 3 years. And then you get people excited for the next 6 years with the blue sky. So you kind of keep leapfrogging. That blue sky becomes what's greenlit, and then there's next blue sky, and it just keeps on going. And I think that'd be great. But we were speaking of Epic Universe, and there was an interesting article that a lot of people read.
Yeah, so the Wall Street Journal had an article on Universal, and actually, ironically, I had a call today with a colleague from work who's like, "Oh, I read this article in the Wall Street Journal. It made me think of you." I was like, "Oh, I wonder which article this was." Yeah. But yeah, so obviously, there was a whole article about how Universal is building Epic Universe, and it's going to be this big step forward, and how is Disney going to react and stuff like that. And the interesting was Disney, their spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal, well, it's actually Epic Universe is Universal playing catch up on a decade of nonstop development at Walt Disney World. So basically saying it's not Disney that needs to answer Epic Universe, but rather Epic Universe is Universal's answer to what has already been happening at Walt Disney World. And this ties into a statement that Bob Iger said at an annual shareholders meeting recently, where he basically said they've been aware of Universal for more than a decade, and that's partly why they've been steadily building new things at Walt Disney World. And there was an article from Blog Mickey where they took a look at what had been done over the past 10 years at both parks, and kind of to try to show, like, is this accurate? Is this really what, that there's been so much more at Disney that now it is Universal just playing catch up or not?
So it's an interesting statement, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some validity to it, right? Like you could say, yes, Disney has been preparing for this park, making sure their parks are up to snuff. But the other side is us as fans are always, what have you done for us lately? Like, yeah, Pandora was great 7 years ago. Yeah, Galaxy's Edge was great 4 years ago. And people would argue, and they're very much correct, like you have to constantly be updating, adding new things to your park just as a standard operating procedure to attract people coming back again and again. So I buy it a little bit. It's a great spin. I do appreciate that. But I don't think there's any validity to like, well, we've been doing this for 10 years. I'm like, so are you saying if Epic Universe was not being built, you would have done nothing in the last 10 years? Because that's the other message that you can say about that. So
it's not like they did nothing the 10 years prior. It's like they were always doing stuff. They were opening new parks back then. It's not like they opened a fifth gate in the past 10 years. So, I did, and I had commented on the Black Mickey article. I think it is good, though. Sometimes people sell short what Disney has done in the past 10 years. It's like they've done nothing, but if you actually see the list out, it's like they've done a lot of construction.
We had this conversation like a year ago, I think. We had a whole spreadsheet of like what they've done. Disney has built a lot of stuff over the last decade. You got to remember, in the last 10 years, that starts with the blue sky or announcement of new Fantasyland that opened. Well, actually, no, Fantasyland, opened in 14, 15 in a couple different phases?
I think it starts with the final opening part with like Mine Train and stuff like that. I think is the first thing. At least that's the oldest thing that the Black Mickey article listed.
Yeah, so I the Skyliner and hotels and kind of give them a pass for 3 years of COVID disruptions, but still, I mean, they've done quite a bit.
Yeah, the two things though why I feel like it doesn't feel that way and why it does feel like Disney needs to answer Epic Universe. I think one of them is what you mentioned with COVID. Disney really put on the brakes and kind of slow walked the opening, the things they had on. Meanwhile, Universal was going full speed with Velocicoaster and stuff like that. So it kind of felt like, okay, maybe prior to COVID, you were doing a lot, but since then, Universal's already been doing some new stuff even before we get to Epic Universe. And the other thing is, if you look through that list, other than like Pandora, a lot of it didn't really add capacity. It was just replacing, and obviously things that were not popular and stuff like that with more popular things. But compared to the capacity that's being added with a third gate over at Universal, it's like those aren't apples and oranges. You can't compare it with that. So I think that's kind of one of the big things is now that you have the third full theme park, how does that impact vacations and stuff like that? So that's why it's a big deal.
No, I get that. I mean, would Hollywood Studios still be the same park today if they didn't reconfigure their studios tours and put Toy Story Land and Galaxy's Edge in there? I don't think so. I mean, that park attracts people because of those things. And if they didn't have them, that would be like worse than Animal Kingdom for capacity's sakes in today's modern, Orlando situation. So, I mean, I give credit for Disney building this, but I don't build them credit as far as competing with their competition. Because by the time this opens in 2025, Universal's going to win the marketing blitz for that. I still don't think they're going to compete with Disney as a whole, but they're going to close the gap significantly. But by the time Disney quote unquote respawns in 2026, Flight of Passage is almost 10 years old at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when did Galaxy's Edge open? That was end of 2019 or summer of 2019, and then finally
Rise opened the end of the year. Yeah.
Yep. And then and at that point, that's 6 years old at that point. And we haven't got anything major added to any of the parks since Galaxy's Edge. And how time flies, but that's 4, almost 5 years old at this point.
Right. And we say the people that are infrequent travelers are like 3 to 5 years, right? So they've all seen that already. There's not a whole new land for them.
And especially the folks that haven't been since 27, 18, 19, they came during the quote unquote travel or revenge travel of 22 to 23. So what gets people to come back? And it's certainly not going to be like, here's Tiana's. But so we're going to see a lot of interesting things, I think, with, discounting offers and entertainment. Again, we've been talking about this every single week. So, there was another major announcement this week. So why don't you go into that? Because there's a little bit of stuff that we've been saying, message boards have been saying. Len Testa has done a lot of math on it, and a lot of it checks out. So we're going to talk about that. But what's the major event?
Yeah, so the major thing that Disney came out recently said, and certainly, we say on this podcast, we like to talk about what people are talking about. This definitely got a lot of discussion going.
Oh, by the way, I when this came out, when did this get announced? Last Wednesday-ish, I think, somewhere, basically 6 days ago, 5-6 days ago. And I was kind of following a WW Magic forum where this got a thread where this got announced, and I think I looked at it on Thursday or Friday. It was at page 30 and 40 already, and I had a whole weekend of family stuff. And at Sunday night when I finally went back to it, the thread was 100 more pages, 100 pages. So this is a big, huge passionate topic. A lot of people are talking about.
Yeah. So what it is that Disney announced that they're going to be making changes to their disability accommodation or the DAS system at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So effective May 20th, So next month at Walt Disney World, June 18th at Disneyland, the Disability Access Service will be changing. And at least this is partly to do in the announcement. Disney came out and said that use of the system has tripled over the past 5 years. So I think that's hard to refute that. I mean, Disney's not going to come out and say that if it's not true. I think there's a lot of reasons behind that. One of them, which Disney will not admit, is because now you have to pay for Genie Plus versus included FastPass. I know several families that, kind of are more than eligible for DAS, but they felt they could get by just by using FastPass Plus, and that worked for them. But now that you have to pay for Genie Plus, and some people don't like the new system, they are now using DAS. I think part of it is there's just more recognition of conditions that people have that in the past maybe just went undiagnosed, and it's kind of less of a stigma now. I think you have just the internets, right? Like everyone's sharing information now. It's just much more out there that Disney has this system and how it works, and people. And then there's more people trying to take advantage of it, right? Especially whether it's instead of having to pay for it, people that are either borderline, or you hear stories of people flat out lying about conditions because you don't have to provide medical evidence. You don't have to need a doctor's note or something. So for whatever the reason, I think I don't think it's any one thing. I don't think it's just that there's a whole bunch more people trying to scam the system, but for whatever the reason is, there's a lot more people using the current existing DAS system than there was in the past.
Just to kind of baseline the conversation, DAS is intended for people that are not able to wait in line for long periods of time for whatever disability or consideration that they might need. If you're in a wheelchair, Disney will tell you do not get a DAS just because you're in a wheelchair, because a lot of the lines are wheelchair accessible, and the ones that aren't, you can wait on another line that brings you in through the exit, right? So there was some wording changes in this where DAS will be available for guests who, due to a developmental disability like autism or something similar, they will have access to it, which set up a huge fury of people like, but what about my mother who has, this illness and can't wait, or somebody else that has, digestive issues and needs to be close to a bathroom and all this other stuff. People are like really getting angry and panicking about Disney. And I think Len Desta said it well on his show, because we're going to talk about some of the numbers he brought up. And I think Disney's not going after the people that need this, need this. Like, you can get on the video, and he said, like, I think it's at like 120 days now that you're able to get this as an interview. And it's good for 120 days. So if you do it 30 days prior to your trip, you can take 2 trips on it if you're coming back that quickly. And I think Disney's not trying to kick people out of here. I think what they're doing is trying to prevent people that are, abusing the system significantly, and only for the people that truly need it. Because Len mentioned, like, if because it rose, assigning DAS passes rose by 3 times, and that's just not 3 times the people, that's 3 times the passes, and each pass has anywhere from 4 to 6 to 9 people that are attached to it, and that's just a huge multiplier of people that can get that. And again, Disney wasn't checking on people, and they were. I mean, go listen to Let Disney Dishes podcast. He's going to do it much better than I can describing it. That being said, the more people that are getting DAS passes erroneously, or maybe they do have a disability, but it's not something that's like, waiting in line is just maybe a discomfort rather than a need. You might get weeded out that way, but the people that truly can't do it are going to get it. Yeah. But that being said, the more people that are in it, you're disadvantaging the people that truly need it, because they're making them wait longer. If there's more people in the lightning lane because of DAS, the people that actually need it versus people that are either abusing it or what have you, or impacting their ability to enjoy the theme parks the way they should be able to. And do you want to get into the numbers now? What we have, or did you have
just a few more things? I think and some other elements of the changes that they announced. First, I think it's certainly understandable. Like, change is scary, and this is something that made visiting Disney a possibility for a lot of people, and that they're not able to travel other places. Like, Disney made it easier than a lot of other places, and I think they're worried that it's going to now not be as easy or as possible for them to go. But like you said,
and that worry is validated.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's my point, is that, I think it's okay to be worried about it. It's probably okay to be a little bit upset, but I think we need to see how it plays out. Maybe Disney should have kept it a little bit more vague or something. But like you said, the people who truly need it, whether it is for something like autism or if somebody has really bad PTSD or whatever it is that they truly cannot wait in line, Disney's still going to accommodate that. I feel confident in that. So we need to kind of see it play out. I think hopefully now there might be just more of a wider spectrum of accommodations where it isn't just DAS and that's the only thing available. And one of the things that they talked about is that they're going to introduce what they're calling a return to queue process for guests who need to leave the queue and re-enter. So for people who do have issues where they can't, they need to go to the bathroom often and quickly, I'm hoping they can extend this even to just people that maybe don't have a specific medical condition, but just have little kids that tell you to go when you're halfway through the line that they need to go, that they make this process by adding different queue systems or more gates or something. They said they'll get into the details later, but that could be something that benefits a lot of people. They did also announce that they're going to be increasing the staff, so the cast members that are responsible for this. So hopefully, I know some people get frustrated that they can't get these calls as quickly or as easily as they'd like. Hopefully this helps that. And they are also going to be working with Inspire Health Alliance's health professionals, so that, just to be clear, you're still going to be talking to the cast member. You're not going to be going directly to this third party. So it is a little different than what Universal does. But these experts are going to help the cast members determine eligibility for the appropriate accommodations for the person that they're speaking with. So there will be medical people involved when it needs to. So those were kind of some of the key elements. They said we'll get more information, I guess, as it's closer, and we just kind of need to see it play out a little bit.
I like the emphasis on the return to queue functionality on this, because it allows people that need to take medication or maybe having people that have high amounts of anxiety, they need to go take a break and then they have a panic attack at a certain point, those type of things. Because I know that there's members of my family that have that suffer through anxiety.
Oh yeah, I have that with my kids too. I mean, my son has it's treated with medicine, but he has ADHD. My daughter has auditory issues. She wears headphones, soundproof headphones all the time. So there's times where they get a little overwhelmed or something. It's never gotten to the point where we felt like we needed DAS or anything. But if there was something like this return to queue where if they needed a break, or maybe there's some other accommodation that'll come up with for us, that we definitely would explore it.
Well, I mean, just think of it how more comfortable, because I mean, my only experience with my immediate family is just with young kids. Everybody that has young kids experiences like, potty accidents or changing diapers or whatever it might be. Baby's cranky, mom needs to go feed the baby, that type of thing. And you're always there thinking, okay, we've been in line for 30 minutes. We're like 20 more minutes. Like, you start pushing your kids or whatever. Okay, just hold it for like another 20 minutes or whatever. But if you have a more reliable tool that you could use, return to queue, maybe it's like you need to take a medication, maybe you're a diabetic, maybe I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to push that, but
for any number of reasons,
any number of valid medical reasons, where now you're not going to feel like you have to go just wait another 20 minutes. You now have a way to come out of the queue and go back in. Hopefully it's fair and it's easy and it's not a pain in the butt, and it just makes you feel more comfortable being in the park, where you're not like having to either hold off on a certain thing because you feel like you don't want to lose your place in line and lose the time that you had already spending. So I like that Disney is at least mentioning or acknowledging that this would be a case for many. So I like that.
And as a side benefit, hopefully now for people who did have to leave and then are trying to get back to their party, that part is also easier versus trying to like get through the line and everyone's giving you dirty looks because they think you're just cutting the line, but you're really just trying to get back. And hopefully it kind of eases all of that too.
I wonder if this would help, because we're talking about, cheaters, right? Like this is like people that are abusing systems within the theme park. So this is not about anybody that might have issues or disabilities or require accommodations for things. These are like downright people that are just irritate me. Like, it's the one person that's waiting in line for 20 minutes and all of a sudden all of their friends come up. Well, they're holding me in place in line. You see 5 people passing to get to that one person that's been in line. So they basically, you have spotters for like 3 people get in lines, and you have one group that goes from ride to ride to ride, and they're able to skip lines. I very much dislike these people. Like, I understand if like, you had a kid that needed to come in and out, that happens all the time. I'm more than happy that. But when I see like, a father and 2 teenage, kids come by, or a group of teenagers or a group of 20 somethings kind of push by, I'm like, no. There's no reason why you couldn't have been waiting in this line. in for that. Maybe I'm being insensitive, Phil. I don't know. But
well, hopefully, like this differentiates it, right? So now
Yes.
the people that had a reason to get out, you have this new system, and
yeah, and hopefully that gives cast members more power to do their jobs better and have more backing from management to be able to tell people like this is not correct, and management backs them up rather than just letting them go in, because that typically does happen because Disney doesn't want confrontation in the parks, and they usually like enough people that grumble, they accommodate them. So hopefully this kind of changes some things. So I want to get into the numbers because Len had a really good point, and he actually he said this on the podcast. He actually posted this on Sunday, I want to say, on WDW Magic Forums about legal cases and stuff like that. So go listen to his podcast for that. But one thing I do want to bring up, because it impacts how you might be able to tour parks differently in the future. Because here's speculation from Len Testa on DAS abuse. So DAS, he found was higher and more popular rides in 2020. So that's like, he took numbers from a publicly transcribed court case, and like we said at the top of the show, certain attractions, I think there was like 3% of park goers had the former version of DAS, but those 3% of people made up I forget the number, so don't quote me on it, somewhere between 11 and 20% of the population of the more popular rides. So they were disproportionately more DAS users in more popular rides, which leads you to believe that people are getting DAS just to ride the rides that have continuously higher numbers. So that means there's repeat rides over and over and over again. So in today's numbers, because remember, he did this study maybe, I don't know, a year ago, where he was counting the amount of people that are going into lightning lanes, and he had some reasonable number of how many lightning lanes per hour they're giving out. We talked about this on the show. Go listen to past Len Testa podcast for his actual work, so get it from the source. But what they managed to say was that 9% of the DAS cards, or of guests that had DAS cards, were 75% of the seats or population of Lightning Lane users. So that means only 25% of the people going through the Lightning Lane were miscellaneous guests, like people using Genie Plus, like legitimately, or very, very minuscule people doing like VIP tours and Club 33 type stuff. But mostly saying almost 2/3, if not more, of guests going through the DAS line were DAS card users, and that is an amazing amount of abuse. And I think the number was 4 out of 5 DAS people were not legitimately using it because of just rampant abuse, in my opinion. And Len had a funny line where apparently he was talking to some higher up executive, and his words were, "I knew who this person was, but I had no idea that this person actually knew who I was," type of thing. So I thought that was rather funny. And he mentions, like, if you could just eliminate one person from abusing DAS, and then they would have to convert to Genie Plus. He said that's basically doubling Genie Plus numbers, and that's almost like $1 billion more profit, or $800 million more in profit. So, well, I appreciate Disney doing the right thing on this. There are some financial motivations behind it. But
I was thinking when I heard him talk about that, it's like, everyone agrees this is the right thing, because we can all disagree or argue about the extent of it, but there is some abuse, and the people that truly need it aren't benefiting as much as they need to. And this is only going to increase over time. It's not going away. So they had to do something. So they're doing the right thing, and they're probably going to make more money off it. I was like, these are the decisions that make executives like their hearts beat a little fast. They get a little flutter, like, oh, we get to do the right thing and make money.
Yeah, it's perfect win-win scenario. And he mentioned, now, Phil, I mean, this totally makes sense that when Tiana's opens up this summer, they were like afraid, like the first month or so, that it was all DAS members, like the Genie Plus people, or at least individual Lightning purchases were going to get you go into individual Lightning and it's now a 40-minute wait because it's all DAS users, and there's like obviously virtual queue people and stuff like that. And it was just going to be a giant disaster. So,
side note, I noticed he slipped. I don't know if he just said this or if he knew something and it slipped, but he said when Tiana's opens in June.
Well, he knew. I mean, I think he says that. I don't think he knows anything.
Okay.
But he does know that there is a media invite for that time frame.
Yeah.
So, because he mentioned on like a week or two ago that like there's a media invitation going out at a certain point, and then there's a cast member blackout time frame and stuff like that for Magic Kingdom. So I'm assuming he's assuming it either opens early and then there's a media event, or like the media event is the opening of the thing. So we're looking at. He was talking about that. Okay. So whether he knows for sure or he's just going off of his
that's just the month, the time frame he's using for this. Yeah.
So here's also my guess right here for like, do you think, Phil, that we've been hearing about Genie Plus changes coming for 8 months now, right? We always thought they were coming in January when the reservations were going away, and that seems like ages ago already, but it's only April. Do you think that they're holding off on the Genie Plus changes until they see how DAS affects Genie Plus?
I hadn't thought about it until I saw you put that in the show notes, and I think it makes sense, right? Because it's all using the same queue. It's all using the Lightning queue. So it certainly makes sense that you would think about both of them and how they interact, and that if you're going to change them, you want to make sure the changes work together and aren't competing and that sort of thing. So it certainly makes sense that whatever, and not that they couldn't have announced the changes to Genie Plus 2, but that whatever changes were coming would have to fit with the changes coming to DAS and vice versa.
Well, I mean, yes, from a technical and ops point of view, but from a business point of view, I think they're holding off on how much they can give people benefits, right? Because think of it this way. I know they're definitely going to go about pre-booking, right? I think that's definitely in the cards, right? Like you're going to be able to book something. But about like availability and stuff like that and how many you could book in advance and the quantity that you can book, I think changes, because if they can somehow knock DAS abuse down, does that triple the amount of Genie Plus, use cases that you can have, right? So if all of a sudden let's say you even reduce it by a quarter, right? You just basically open up 20% more slots because those are not people that are abusing it. All of a sudden, Genie Plus just becomes a better system because there's now more availability. Like, what were the major complaints? I can't get the rides that I want to get. It's a pain in the butt. I booked something and I have to wait until like 6 o'clock at night for it, type of thing. Like, there's all those, complaints for it because you can't use it the way you want it and when you want it. So if they have ways of where, picking your time slot, altering your time slot to a target one, not just whatever the next available one is, all these things, if there's more available inventory, they can then provide that to the customer without impacting the system, right? But because let's say they knock abuse down, there's so much more inventory, but much more people buy Genie Plus, and it's the same way now, but it's just more people competing for more slots, that they don't have to, or they don't have the ability to kind of offer some of this flexibility into the system because they have to wait to see how DAS impacts it. Am I being clear on that? I'm kind of rambling a little bit.
No, I get what you're saying, that the more people, they need to see how big of an impact this is really going to have to know how many extra slots there are that they can use it for Genie Plus or individual Lightning lanes or whatever. And then they'll need to see how many more people are going for Genie Plus because now they maybe don't have DAS, or they're seeing, hey, it's actually a better benefit because there's more availability. The Lightning lane isn't getting as long as sometimes you were seeing on the internet and stuff like that. So maybe it becomes more popular. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think there's a lot of competing and moving parts.
Yeah, because there's the whole legal aspect of this change, right? I mean, obviously the lawyers combed this up and down to make sure everything was above board. And then you had the ops portion of things trying to figure out what the next version of Genie Plus is going to look like. And I think they were independent tracks, right? So when they started kind of merging, I think let's say to improve Genie Plus, they were saying, okay, let's give people the ability to pick 3. Let's give the people the ability to pick their own time if available, give people more freedom within the system, because more freedom is great. But then when they saw this coming, it says, well, if we open up this many more slots, what happens if people rush in and it's still the same? We can't offer that level of flexibility now because of the way the system works. So I think they're in a holding pattern just because of this.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. So here's my next question. If Genie Plus has a lot more availability, right? You're not like, I want Peter Pan, but like at, park open plus 2 hours, I try to get Peter Pan at Magic Kingdom. And it's available at 11 a.m. or let's say 12 a.m. the next hour, or it's available like right now it would be either sold out or not available until like 8 p.m. Right. Essentially. How does it impact if all of a sudden there's more availability where it's, you could, if, at, 11 a.m. picking your second, lightning lane, you could get it for 11:30 or 12 o'clock consistently, not just like in the slow periods, but consistently. Does that entice you to purchase Genie Plus more? Because you had a day at Magic Kingdom where you didn't use it, and you've had days at Magic Kingdom where you have used it. Does that push you towards buying it more often if you can use it more freely like that?
I mean, I guess, there's still a lot of more moving parts because we'll need to see what does this do to the standby lines too. Does it actually make them move a little quicker and stuff like that? And then we also need to see what the change is. Is the change now booking 3 ahead of time? Because then more people might do that and stuff like that. But I mean, the more availability, the easier it is to use, the less I have to be on the go project managing and mentally keeping track of 4 different things to see which one's going to run out soonest and stuff. Like the less I have to do that, the more I can have just a fun day while using it. Yeah, that makes it a little
well, that's
more
my question, right? Because the more ease of use, right, gets rid of the mental bandwidth, like you just mentioned, that us two crazy people constantly think about when we're at the parks. Does this provide you with 2 things? A better user experience, so you're able to have a vacation, and also feeling like you got your money's worth, right? Because easily right now we could buy it and we can say, we're just doing a vacation, when a lot of people do, let's just pick something, boop, done, and go about our day. Our brains can't do that. We try to maximize value of the money that we're spending. So I think personally, if the flexibility is there, I don't have to worry about tracking things, I will be more likely to buy it because I can still have the vacation and not just be like a crazy person staring at my phone all day.
I guess my fear is that I would still be a crazy person because it's like I agree in theory, but it's like instead of getting 6 or 7, now I can get 8 or 9 or whatever it is. But I do get your point. That kind of break even point of where you feel you got value from it. So you might not push for that 8th or 9th one, because you already got 7 good ones or whatever, So
yeah. All right, I think we kind of overdid that one a little bit. Let's go, like, because I want to talk about, again, we're a planning podcast. One of the things that we always love doing is helping our friends and family and Facebook friends and random people on the internet plan for their vacations. It's one of my favorite things doing after I became a fanatic Disney planner. So my wife has an old friend that I've only met a handful of times. But very good friend of my wife said she mentioned she was planning a Disney trip. And she's like, oh, Jason's a crazy Disney person. He can definitely help you out. So she called me. I don't think I've talked to this lady for 8 or 9 years. And we ended up having a 1-hour conversation about Disney. Like, she didn't want to hang up. She kept asking questions. It was absolutely, a fun conversation. I was driving, so I had plenty of time to give her my full attention. So I want to give you a perspective of somebody that she was at Disney with a friend of hers, not with her son, single mother with a 15-year-old son. So she's been on property lately with a local that was a friend of hers, but she hadn't been to Disney in God knows how long, right? As like a family vacation type of thing. Mm-hmm. And she's a teacher. She knows how to plan things. She knows how to organize things. She knows how to do all the, she's planning itineraries is not, she's not a stranger to that. Right. But looking at Disney, she didn't know where to start. So she initially sent me an email of like, all right, I walked around on property. I talked to my friends and she had a list of like, I want to stay someplace like the Boardwalk, Swan and Dolphin, Yacht and Beach Club, Caribbean Beach Resort, or Port Orleans. And she didn't say Riverside or French Quarter. And it's like, what do I do here? And how do I book? And when should I book? And all this other stuff. She wants to go the 2nd or 3rd week of June, essentially. And, I said, all right, let's stop. I said it. This is all before we had our conversation. It's like, well, here are the pros and cons of all these different deluxe resorts. Here's the transportation surrounding them. She wants to make sure she has a better collection of transportation. She wants to take monorails and walking or a boat versus waiting for buses, that sort of thing. So we kind of broke it all down. So we finally had a conversation where we kind of went over this. It's like, look, you don't want a deluxe room. You want to go there and spend all of your time in the parks, right? If you're going to a deluxe, you're going to spend anywhere between $100 to $500 more per night. If you want to spend time at pools and stuff like that, that'd be great. Otherwise, you just need a bed, right? So I just went through all the different things. So what I finally priced out for her was there's a new deal out there where you can get 5 nights. If you book 5 nights or more, you get I think it's up to a 30% discount. With this deal I think it was June 7th for 5 nights, 6 days. Animal Kingdom Lodge was $350 a night, Phil. Again, party of 2. It's not a party of 5 like we usually look at that just blows everything up. This was $350 a night. And then you match that with the 4-park ticket deal. Was it 4 Magic Park ticket? I know the word magic is in there somewhere. And combined for 4-park tickets for 2 people, 2 adults, and 5 nights, 6 days at Animal Kingdom Lodge, $3,200, Phil. When have you ever gone to Disney World for $3,200?
2017.
Maybe when you went with your son for overnight, it was half that cost, right? They're just flying down and all this other type of stuff. And so I also priced some other things for that same week. Caribbean Beach Resort is not on that discounted list right now. It's either sold out or not available for.
Yeah, I was going to say they probably had a certain amount of rooms and they're all gone.
That was $350 a night rack rate. The same price as Animal Kingdom Lodge. Port Orleans was in the low 200s. I forget exactly. I think it was either 220 or 240. And then some values in the 150 to 180 mark. Right. And I'm like, wow, that is a real, she ended up going with paying rack rate for CBR because she wanted to be on the Skyliner. So she got what she wanted on that. So I just kind of, I want to bring this up because she booked it and she's very happy and she sent me an email thanking me for all the help, but it was a 40-minute conversation, Phil. And it was more what days do I do parks? How does this sound? What about this? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of considerations and all the different things that we talk about on the show. Do you want to start your vacation with Animal Kingdom because it's a slower paced day after traveling so much? Or do you want the hustle and bustle of Magic Kingdom the first day? All these kind of considerations, she never considered about that. So as you talk to a lot of your friends and family out there that's going to Disney World for the first time and you want to uncover your Disney fanaticism and share that with the world, ask those questions how do you feel about going crazy for the first day versus the last day, those type of things. And she was intimidated about how to book and how to match tickets and hotel rooms. Do I book just the hotel? Where do I get tickets from? I can get tickets from Costco or AAA. What difference does it make? Where are all these deals? And there's a lot of confusing questions. And, what we like to talk about is, planning is easy, Phil, only because we've done it a million times, right? But it's when you show up and there's 20 different options for hotels, which one do I pick and why? Where do I buy tickets? Do I buy them directly from Disney? Some people tell me I can get a great deal on AAA and all this other stuff. And granted, all the Disney ticket deals that you can get elsewhere, you're saving maybe $10 to $20 per person on tickets. So it's not a massive savings.
Yeah.
But, $40 is $40, right? That's a meal. But once she got past the layer of how to book a hotel, how do I get tickets, how do I put that together, she was completely relieved. She's like, oh, that was easy. So I don't know. I mean, we always hear this conversation. We haven't even gotten to Genie Plus and all that other type of stuff yet, right? But even getting over that hurdle, in your mind, Phil, is there anything Disney can do to make things easier on that front? Because I don't know how to pick, other than here, pick a hotel you want to stay at. Here, buy some tickets, which is pretty simple. But overall, it's pretty intimidating, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what Disney can do because my first thought was this is in one case where the internet makes things worse because you're inundated with information. And when it's written out, because there's so many little nuances with Disney, it just gets really overwhelming really fast. And I found that last summer when I was helping a family book where they were messaging me and I was messaging them back. And especially once we got to Genie Plus and stuff, it's well, there's this, but then you have this fact. And when you have to write everything out, it's obscene. But when you get together and chat for an hour or whatever, it's oh, that's not that bad. And even and when you're there, it's it seems super complicated. When you're actually doing it, it's not that bad. So I don't know how Disney forces people to talk to each other, but I don't know, maybe. I know in the past they used to send out planning videos. I don't know if
I don't think that works.
I don't know what the right answer is, because I think there's almost too much information out there and too many sources. We talked about this once, right? How do you get? They need to have like an earmarked vloggers or something like that, where it's like, okay, here are the 10 ones that are actually worth listening to, or something. I don't know.
I think the way they need to do it, because it needs to come through their website, because that's how half the people are doing it, or they're going to a travel agent that may not make it complicated for them. Here's what I would do, and when I constantly go and look for just random, what does this hotel cost for this night? Because it's a random conversation we're having on Discord or a forum somewhere, and I want to show them the cost of something or look something up. Disney's website for booking hotels is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Right. It's not good. I don't know if I've never looked for it online, but if you look online, there you might be able to find a video of the travel agent's website. I have access to it because I have a registered travel agent. The travel agent's website is so much better. It's just functional. It's like you click in where you want to go, the nights you want to stay, and it just populates. And here's all the costs, right? It doesn't look pretty. It's more informational. It's a tool versus like part of like a marketing, endeavor. But I think Disney needs to reorganize the way they present hotels, because they go, here's Disney picks, and it's like staying at the Contemporary, $850 a night, and with maybe like a discounted rate attached to it, and I don't think the value moderate deluxe models work anymore.
Yeah.
They need to start categorizing them. And somebody on, there was a travel agent on WDW Magic that brought this up. So this is not my idea, but it kind of makes sense. You need to start, categorizing the hotels as, you have park hotels, or whatever you want to call them, like premier hotels that have like monorail access, right? It's the Poly, Grand Flow, and the Contemporary. That's a group right there. And then you have Skyliner resorts. And I don't know, but they need to start like grouping them around functionality rather than what their price point is. And so when you go and say, okay, I want to stay at a Disney hotel, and you're looking at Animal Kingdom Lodge, Beach Club, Yacht Club, Boardwalk, Saratoga Springs, Coronado Springs, Port Orleans Riverside, all these different, you're like, where do I start? Like, I don't want to go and compare 50 resorts to each other, right? So instead of grouping them by price point, because you still get a wide variety. Sometimes one moderate is more expensive than Animal Kingdom Lodge for whatever reason. Why do I should consider that? So I think they certainly need to start grouping them based off of amenities or things that they offer. So like, oh, do I want to stay in, because everybody knows the Disney monorail. Do I want to stay at a monorail resort? Do I want to stay at a Skyliner resort? Do I want to stay however they want to group them? But at least you can get a sense of like, this is the type of vacation I want. These are the amenities I want. And you can go to that group and work within that small group of bookings versus like a wide variety. Because at deluxe resort, like Animal Kingdom Lodge, beautiful resort, it's all buses, which is completely different from the Polynesian, which is right on the monorail, which people love. You have access to Epcot and Magic Kingdom with it. So I think that's what they do. And that might help people narrow, because once you start narrowing down the scope of what you could pick from easily, people lose because you don't get the paralysis of choice or confusion or anything. It's like,
I hear what you're saying, because I've gone in a few times and it feels like you put in the dates and then it lists them all out, but then you have to click on them to see the availability, and then it's got 5 different categories just at that one hotel and stuff like that, where it's, I don't know, in some ways I know you've had this idea before where it's more of like a package thing, where it's just like you just log in, give your dates, and they give you like 3 options. Like, okay, here's your total cost if you want to stay at the Polynesian, your total cost at Caribbean Beach, and your total cost at Pop. Pick one of the 3 and be done with it. Like,
I think and then have a like advanced search if you
want
to go back.
If you want to go into it, you can. But like you could do you want to do the simple or the more detailed one? Yeah.
And so that led me to, I was thinking about all of this, and we kind of got this our friend over the hump. She's now booked. She's super excited. I was like, okay, you're at the 60-day mark like a week ago. Come to me in about 30 days and we'll start talking about Genie Plus and how to actually use it. Because she was aware, she was with her friend that was trying to get a virtual queue for Guardians, and she missed it, and she's getting very confused. She started asking me questions like, look, it's not that complicated because your friend didn't do the 1 p.m. drop. She's like, what does that mean? It's like, don't even worry about that.
Yeah.
Let's book your trip first. But the question, as I was going with this, I was going through a Reddit thread that I saw, and somebody was asking, is extra evening hours worth it? Right. And to me, extra evening hours are worth it. If you take the money away, it's a great perk. You had a great time doing it a year ago, or was it 2022?
Yep.
When we were there. But then let's do the math, right? So on average, and I didn't look this up, but like for example, Animal Kingdom Lodge at $350 a night. That's a really good price. To me, that is worth booking Animal Kingdom Lodge to get that perk, because $350 a night is expensive, but it's not very expensive, where you can enjoy the stay there and you get great value for your stay. But when you don't get those deals, you're spending $500, $600, $700 a night at a resort, depending on people and whatever your combination is. That's actively anywhere between $100 and $200 a night, or if not more. And if you're staying 5 nights at $100 or $200 more, is the extra $500 to $1,000 worth extra evening hours? Is that something that you would want to consider, Phil?
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about this, and in some ways, that's what we're doing for our trip down in August. Is that we enjoyed our extra evening hours pastime, and then with my son, when we did the after hours event, obviously that was a hard ticket event, but that was so much more relaxed. And actually, just the other day, my son's like, when we go down in August, can we do what we did last time and not have any plans and just like do stuff? So I'm like, he's like living the vacation within the vacation.
Man, he's a good influence on you.
So I think it just makes things easier, because you can hit stuff during that time. To counter the pricing, it's probably less of a need than to buy Genie Plus and stuff like that. And it's just, and again, we've been finding more and more with our trip, getting up for rope drop is harder for my family.
Well, you're getting teenagers now.
Yeah. So I'm knowing, officially all my kids by the time we go will all be Disney adults.
Yeah.
So I'm just finding it's worth it. The cost that now I'm not pushing them to get up so that we can get to rope drop and stuff. It's like, everybody sleep in. We get to the parks when we want. We know we got these 2 extra hours in the evening. We can hit up stuff. And so I think for how our vacation mindset is shifting, it's totally worth it to try to fit those in, especially like we rented DVC points for probably a similar price to what this is, for like $350, $400 a night. Gets more questionable when you're at like $800, $900 a
well,
night.
That's the question, right? Well, where is that breaking point where those 2 extra hours, like when you go, I'm imagining there's probably at least 2 different nights where you have extra evening hours.
So the days we'll be there, we'll hit both the Magic Kingdom and the Epcot one. Yeah.
So you're getting 4 extra park hours. And obviously you could do math by park and dollars and all the other stuff. I don't think anybody should be doing that, because it's just you just want to cry yourself to sleep in your empty wallet by doing that. But if you're only spending an extra, I don't know, $500 versus another type of room, to get an extra 4 hours of park time for $500 for 5 people, so $100 per person, so $50 an hour. Yeah. I don't know, whatever it comes out to be. I believe I would do that in a heartbeat, right? Yeah. If I can get those prices. But if you had to spend $600 a night, where now you're spending an extra $1,000, let's say $200, let's say average room at CBR is anywhere between $350 and $400, or let's say high 2s to low 4s in that kind of range. And you have to go $650 a night at, I don't know, Polynesian or wherever it might be. $1,000, is that too much to spend, Phil, for those? Where's your break-off point? I'm curious.
It's probably, I don't know, once you cross $1,000, that's I don't know if there's just a mental mark. But yeah, I mean, I think like $500, $600, $700. I think that's worth it for the family of 5 to get those extra hours, and for us to be able to sleep in and to not have to get Genie Plus and worry about that. Like, I think it all kind of builds into just a better experience. Mm-hmm. It isn't just those 2 hours. And so for me, that's worth $500, $600, $700. Probably a mental barrier once you get to $1,000 and stuff like that. I don't know. It's part of it's just the absolute cost of a room. Like, I just can't wrap my head around spending $700, $800 a night.
Me neither.
But yeah, but when there's options for $350 or renting DVC points, there were lots of, if you do it early enough, there's plenty of options for reasonable prices for DVC rentals. Even if you go out to a Saratoga Springs or something like that, and those get you access to those evening hours. So.
I think $800, $800 to $900 is my mark. And that seems crazy to me right now, because that would mean like, it's about maybe over the course of 6 nights. What's the math? $150 or so a night.
900 would be 150 over 6 nights. Yeah.
So that would put me, like, my tolerance for a room is around 300, 350. $350. So that would put me at $500 a night. if you remember my trip report from last Christmas, where we spent $900 or almost $1,000 for Christmas tickets the week before Christmas, I said it was totally worth it because we had 8 hours in the parks that were like absolutely awesome. We had a great time. And the only thing I would cringe at was like, okay, we're only getting 4 hours versus 8 or whatever it was of good party time. But then I'm thinking, all right, but I get a better resort and I can do more at the resorts in the morning and just enjoy, let's say, Animal Kingdom Lodge, because that's probably where we're going to get the prices of it on lower. I think that's where I came to this conversation. It's $350 to $400 a night if I can get that deluxe. Now that I'm thinking about it, you're talking about it, I'm like, you know what? If I said truthfully that one long night was worth the $900 because of the crowds, then 2 nights of extra magic hours for an extra $100 a night, like that's kind of the same thing at that point, right? So,
and then obviously you get the other added perks of being at a nicer hotel and better pools and all that sort of stuff too. But
see, Disney should just hire me to have these epiphanies like a podcast to get people to buy deluxe resorts. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. I've never really priced a deluxe, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe our trip next May, whenever we start thinking about that, which is still 13 months away, whereas you're going back again in what, 4 months? 4 months now?
Yeah, August. It's like 120 days. Something like that.
Crazy. It seems like you were just there too.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll wrap that one up. So if you have a thought on if extra magic hours is worth it, hop onto Discord and join the conversation and say what is your dollar amount to get into extra hour? How much would you pay for it? Let's just say for the extra 2 hours. We still have the game from like 3 weeks ago that we're going to play next week if we have time. I was looking at the clock. We were like 2 topics ago. I'm like, it's only like 20.
Yeah, the first 2 topics we were doing great. And then
boom, done.
Yeah. Then we get in. Well, now we know why there's 140 pages on a WDW Magic talking about that.
Exactly. So we haven't done a DBC engagement for a couple of weeks, so we're bringing that back. This is next week's DBC engagement tied to Hollywood Studios, and this was yours, Phil. What other Hollywood themes would you like to see represented at Hollywood Studios? Assuming that it goes to Disney World, Adventure World, whatever.
In the evolution, if they redo and kind of retheme and that sort of thing to Hollywood Studios around similar to what they're doing in Paris, where it's like kind of Hollywood adventure and living in the different worlds, what types of genres or themes or that type of thing? Or I guess you could just pick which IP, if you think that's enough for a mini land, would you want to see use?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We'll go over, I don't know if we can answer this question next week because we just did like 20 minutes ago, but we'll talk about what you guys are saying out there. So please hop into Discord in the DBC pod channel. Also, I want to shout out our friend Matt's podcast, Happily Everything Disney. They're going through a series now of what is the proper way to tour a park. So it's their ideas of like, you haven't been there for 3 to 5 years and you're going back to Magic Kingdom. What are the things you have to do? You have one day at that particular park. What do you have to do? They did Magic Kingdom last week and they were absolutely wrong with everything that they said. I joked that I was driving home from seeing a client and I had to pull over and text Matt, like, you are absolutely wrong with all of your choices here. It was that urgent, but it was there's no wrong opinion on
right.
It, right? It's just opinion.
It's just another example of how people do the parks differently.
Yeah. I'm just being a butthead saying like you did it wrong. Right. But obviously people find different things more amusing, but it's like, this is totally the opposite of what I would do if I had to go back to the park for after 5 years. So yeah, go give them a listen and go harass Matt and Happily Everything Disney channel on Discord. See, Discord's for multiple podcasts, so bring it in there. Anything else, Phil, that we got to talk about that I forgot? Because I tend to do that.
Nope, I think we got everything, and we mentioned all the social media and stuff like that. So yeah, shout us out and keep it going.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching and listening. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Bye.